a company that I co-founded in August 2017, the goal of which was to look for lithium in Mongolia. We went to country in 2017. We saw some early results that were quite encouraging, so we approached the government to bring license up for tender in the lithium space in 2019. We were granted our first license, 81,000 hectares, Babayul, 23 kilometers from the Chinese border. We went public in August 2020, quite a tough sort of resource environment to go public in, but battery metals were coming back into favor as a result of government spending. And so that prompted us to go public on the Toronto Stock Exchange, the venture exchange under ticker ION. We're in the US under IONGF and in Frankfurt under 5YB. We received a secondary asset in 2021, that's Urgach Narren, means rising sun, which is rather encouraging given it is a clean green metal. We started exploration on that project earlier this year with Don Haynes, Paul Fornazzari, Mark King. These are names that are ex-Neo Lithium as well as Lithium Americas. It's a very seasoned team. We did a fair bit of geophysics on Urgach Narren, and we're on track to have an inferred resource on that asset before the end of the year. So a lot of exciting things with respect to the company and where we are today. Of course, Mongolia is 1.5 million square kilometers, so it's a rather large country with a population of 3.5 million, a very young democracy in a true sense. It is a democracy. You're seeing today that mining is sort of taking an uptick. It's vastly mineral, it's very well endowed from a mineral perspective. Rio Tinto runs Oyu Tolgoi there, which is the third largest copper gold mine in the world. So it's a jurisdiction that's getting the right attention for the reasons that I've mentioned earlier, which is that the wealth minerals or the wealth richness in country is rather high. As a democracy, we work with the government hand in hand to help advance our initiatives in country. Of course, this Ukraine crisis has caused some challenges in the region, but none of which have spilled over into Mongolia. In fact, Rio Tinto just doubled down on their acquisition of Turquoise Hill in the tune of about $8 billion. So that's really validating that country and de-risking it significantly. We think because we're in battery metals and China and that region as a whole consumes the vast majority of the world's lithium or battery metals, Mongolia is ideally suited to provide that region with the necessary lithium going forward. We did a bought deal last year with PI Financial and Stifel GMP. We raised $5.75 million at 50 cents a unit with a 70-cent warrant. Fully diluted today, we're about 70 million shares. What's trading is about 60 million shares today, 25% in the hands of management and insiders. So we're a big proponent of the company, and we want to ensure that our shareholders succeed alongside us. Some funds are in there as well. Cash position today is about $2 million. We are funded from an exploration perspective, so we do not require funds at this level. It's a great position to be at, given where the junior market space is currently. But that allows us to bring our inferred resource online before the end of the year, and then further expand exploration activities at Babayul next year. So for now, we're good. We're not looking for equity, but we are in talks with strategics that would come in at a premium to the last raise, of course. On Babayul, we had a very expansive program that spanned about 70% of the asset. And for our listeners, to put things in perspective, Babayul is 81,000 hectares, so it's about 60 kilometers wide by about 20 kilometers tall, roughly 5 times the size of the city of Vancouver. When we went public in August 2020, we didn't have access to Mongolia, and Mongolia being first movers, as far as ION Energy is concerned in the lithium space, the necessary skill set didn't exist in country. And so we opted to do an auger program across this asset to identify anomalies close to surface. We found very strong lithium anomalies of up to 1,502 ppm. We found very significant copper-nickel discoveries as well. So massive license, a lot of upside, but it wasn't explored to the level, if you will, that you would expect to see in LATAM or the Lithium Triangle for that instance. So this year when we went to site, we went to Urgach Narren, and we employed those methodologies that would have been used in LATAM, and that's why we've been able to advance Urgach Narren quite significantly. We've done over 83 holes, over 100 line kilometers of geophysics. We're currently drilling using a diamond core to figure out the lithology. We've been able to calculate the resistivity, so we know the volume of the brine below surface. This drilling program now that we're using diamond and nested well methodology as well, to obtain those brine samples from depth and then come to an average grade across that entire aquifer and ultimately announce that inferred resource before the end of the year. So it's extremely exciting. In fact, I'll be in Mongolia next week, so I fly out on Friday. We were there earlier in April with our technical experts, but it's moving rather well. We're very excited and encouraged by the early results, and we look forward to sharing those with the market. Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll start to see news flow every 2 to 3 weeks going forward, given the fact that we are pressing on with our exploration program. You can expect to see the very first results come out in and around October, and then the inferred resource around November or December this year. So exciting times ahead, and we'll provide the market with regular updates as we proceed. Of the major catalysts of the industry, of the company, the inferred resource is really that tipping point. It's make or break for many of the lithium brine explorers around the world. You've seen companies pop anywhere between 10 and 65x on the back of that. We would ultimately encourage strategic investment at that time to bring in a strategic, not only to give us the necessary skill set, but also to look to partner to ultimately bring these assets to production in the future. These are the kinds of announcements you can expect from us over the next 2 quarters, and then of course you'll see some expansion on Bavayol next year as we start to explore that further as well. So I think, one thing somebody once said to me, I think that should be taken rather, lightheartedly by anybody that's listening today, but if it's not grown, it's mined, right? So if we look around the world today, everything that we see that is green or we're eating or that is grown is ultimately grown, but everything else is mined. And so mining is an extremely important part of society, culture, and ultimately our future. The way that we abate sort of the environmental issues is by using ESG techniques. And yes, ESG is a recent buzzword, but it's the way that we've operated. It's been our ethos well before ESG was a buzzword. So our goal is to build those community relationships, build our social license, make sure that the environment as well as the populace understand what we're doing and how they will benefit from it. We have good governance programs in place from an environmental perspective. I think if you look at lithium brine today, one of the biggest advancements that currently exists is the use of DLE. There's a company out of France that's on the cusp of essentially putting a commercially viable plant in production by 2025 at very low cash costs. And DLE is important because you're not depleting the water table, you're not moving earth, you're not creating evaporation ponds that ultimately span a significant hectarage across your asset. So DLE is one way that the lithium industry in particular is moving towards a greener future. So the team at ION Energy consists of myself as chief executive. We have a number of board members that are Mongolian. We believe it's important to operate with a local presence irrespective of jurisdiction. One of those individuals is a special advisor to the Ministry of Mining. He was with the prior government, he was reappointed with the new government, so we are politically agnostic in country. We can get things done irrespective of which party is in power. And then we've assembled a team of very strong lithium experts as well. So Paul Fornazzari, the original chairman of Lithium Americas, now valued at over $4 billion, is our strategic advisor. He also co-founded Neo Lithium, which sold to Zijin last year for about $1 billion in Q4 of last year. So that's a team that is very much considered, or Paul rather, is very much considered a pioneer in the lithium space in the Americas. But we added a technical team that includes Dr. Mark King. He was the qualified person on file at Neo Lithium when it sold to Zijin. He was the first person to write a 43-101 for the lithium space in Canada. We also added Don Haynes, who is an industry expert, well recognized, works for the likes of LRC as well as a number of other very well-known lithium companies. And Dr. David Deek, who was the Senior Vice President and CTO of Lithium Americas. And prior to that, he was at Tesla, where he helped build the supply chain for Gigafactory 1 in Nevada. So we've assembled a rather strong team, and we remain encouraged based on what we've seen thus far this year on Urgaknaran as well as Bavayol. And we're just excited to be able to share this with the market.